Hello, I made it back. I don't know.
Okay, so it's connecting one more time. Let's see how it goes. Crossing fingers. Done. Redirecting page. One more time. Let's see how it goes. Perfect. All right, we are live on Facebook. We have 2 people watching. Thank you everybody for your patience while we had some fun IT issues on our end. My name is Hillary Presican. I am the Program Manager of Community Development for the Native Arts Professional Development Trainings, or NAPD. I want to welcome everybody on Zoom and on Facebook Live to the FPF Resilience webinar series. This webinar series has been developed to continue our work to enhance the business and entrepreneurial skills of Native artists and culture bearers, as well as expand our virtual community during these rapidly changing times. Every week, First Peoples Fund and our nationally recognized Native Arts Professional Development, or NAPD trainers, will deliver values-based, topic-focused webinars on Mondays, followed by technical assistance office hours, which is today, to follow up and answer any questions regarding Monday's webinar. Just to let everybody know, we do have a webinar series set up for next week with Tanaya Winder. She will be covering performing arts. And starting in June, we have confirmed presenters Ben Sherman on business development, or excuse me, business planning. We have Koloku Holt on performing arts and negotiation. And we also have Robert Martinez focusing on marketing. Other future virtual events coming up through FPF, through the Rolling Res Arts. They're excited to kick off the first events of the virtual arts celebration. Rolling Res Arts program is dedicated to bringing folks in Indian country and surrounding communities the expertise and disciplines of artists within the First Peoples Fund family. Saturday, May 23rd, Michael Tubles will go live on Facebook with printmaking demonstration of cyanotype. This live event will open up with a performance by a special guest artist, so definitely try to tune in on May 23rd for that. Some other events that are coming up is Wednesday, June 3rd. There's a 3 p.m. Facebook Live with Wade Patton. He'll be demonstrating matting and framing. And on Wednesday, July 1st, Mary Jo LeBeau will demonstrate moccasin making. So those are going to be some pretty cool stuff that Rolling Res Arts is going to be sharing on a virtual platform with us on Facebook Live. So just some quick housekeeping here on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. This is a recorded webinar, which will be available within 48 hours for the Zoom participants, or will be automatically available on our Facebook page. For Zoom participants, please stay on mute and send me any of your questions, since this is a virtual office hour, both on Facebook and on Zoom. Feel free to send me questions at any point. I will be collecting those questions and sharing them with Leslie as she goes through content she shared yesterday and updates. Yeah, and it looks like, again, like our topic is the planning the artist calendar. And without further ado, I am excited to introduce again Leslie Deer from the Muscogee Nation of Oklahoma. So thank you so much, Leslie, and I appreciate your patience during our IT hiccup. And the floor is yours, virtually speaking.
Hello, Hillary. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming back today for the office hour. Excuse me. And again, thank you, Hillary, for doing such a great job in keeping your cool under pressure to get us all connected again. So I'm happy to be back and go over anything. If anyone has any questions, if you were online with us on Monday, if there's anything that wasn't clear or you want me to discuss a little bit further, please send in your questions now. I'll give it just a second. Otherwise, I can just go back into some of the information. I did discuss some of the major art markets on Monday, if you weren't here, and I have some updates on some of those events that are upcoming and maybe postponed or canceled. So, Hillary, do you have any questions so far?
Oh, No, not yet. Just
Okay,
the amazing Janelle Year Out is saying hello and wanting some information, so I'm working with her on that. But yeah,
great.
keep moving forward.
Okay, sounds good. So I am going to pull up the slide. Let's see here if I can get the right slide going. We will look at some of these art markets again, and I'll just give you an update on some of these as best I can. I wasn't able to contact every single one of them, but the ones I did get updates for, I want to share with you. So let's see. Let me get into the, here we go. So back to these major art markets, the Autry, the American Indian Arts Marketplace at the Autry Museum is scheduled for November 14th and 15th of 2020. And I did not contact anyone there, but I did check their website earlier today and I didn't see any notice of cancellation or anything. So if that's a market that you're interested in attending or researching, going to have a look at it, that one at this point in time is probably still on schedule. And again, you know, no one can really predict the future, so it's hard to know. You just kind of have to keep an eye on some of these and make sure as it gets closer to time that they are still going to actually take place. Cherokee Nation Art Market, I did contact one of my friends at Cherokee Nation in the Cultural Resources Department today, and she shared with me that as of right now, it is scheduled and on track for October 10th and 11th, 2020. She said, of course, they are continuing to monitor the situation. So again, it's kind of like a standby at this point. It's going to take place, but you want to check again as it gets closer to time if you wanted to research that event to make sure that it is still going to happen. And that, again, is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Idlejarg Museum Indian Market and Festival has been postponed till 2021. I think we looked at that website on Monday and it was still looked like it was on schedule, but today it does say that it's postponed until 2021. So that usually takes place at the end of June. So markets out as far as the end of June are still canceling. Heard Museum took place last March. So again, it won't come back around until March of 2021 and who knows what will be going on then. So Longhouse Holiday Native Arts Fair. I tried to look that up and it looks like I didn't see an event scheduled for this year as far as their holiday arts market. Maybe it's too far out, but I did see something about some damage to one of their buildings. So maybe they just plan to not even have it this year. The Native People of the Plains, Native Pop, we discussed that and we looked at their website and saw the little video on Monday. And an update on that, since Hillary is a volunteer, she was kind enough to share information with me. And it was determined that that event is going to be postponed for this year, or canceled until 2021. She did say that they will be sending a survey out to artists to see what kind of needs the artists have. And they're going to release a press release as well. So Native Pop, which takes place in July, is canceled for this year. The Native Hawaiian Arts Market, I could not find any information, but again, you might check the Pi Foundation, pifoundation.org, to see if you can find anything there if you're interested in going to Honolulu, and who isn't, honestly. National Museum of the American Indian, NMAI, they have art markets in December in New York and Washington, D.C. And I did not find any information on their website, so it might be one of those things. I have not applied to them before, so I honestly don't know what the process, what the timeline is for applying to their art market. I don't know if it's too early or they're just taking the wait and see approach. So Northern Plains Indian Art Market in Sioux Falls in September is canceled. Red Cloud Indian Art Show, which takes place June 7th through August 6th. Is going forward on schedule. I checked their website today and it said with a lot of encouragement, they've decided to move forward with it. And this is another one I have not attended personally, but from what I understand, they have a big opening night for the show. And then artwork remains in their gallery for June, July, up until the beginning of August. So I think that visitors come through and view the artwork on their own timeline as the gallery is open for those months. So it sounds like that's a little bit different scenario than a regular weekend art market that's just packed with tons of people. So they are planning to go forward. Red Earth Native American Cultural Festival in Oklahoma City usually takes place in June. And of course, when we check their website, it says that it has been postponed. And I actually reached out earlier today to my friend who is the co-director of Red Earth. And I want to share because he wrote me back just before we went live here a couple of minutes ago. And he says, yes, we will have Red Earth Festival Art Market with no powwow this year at the Grand Casino Hotel and Resort in Shawnee, Oklahoma. We've had to change our June dates and we'll announce our new dates soon. They're also planning to have a new Fall Fest event in October in Oklahoma City. So those are things to look out for. And again, I think it's one of those things that you just have to keep checking in with these organizations to see what's going to happen or not. And then finally, Santa Fe Indian Market, as we know, they already have canceled for this year, and they're going live with the virtual marketplace online. So that's the update on some of these major art markets as far as I know. And so I just wanted to share that information with you. But also on Monday, you know, we talked about creating a timeline, putting these events, you know, on a timeline in a calendar format to plan to attend these events and to be kind of organized so that we could spend more time focusing on our artwork. And so, for example, let's say we just take one of these art markets and say we're interested in researching it to attend the following year, and let's just put it on that timeline and see how it works. So the first one I know of that's coming up, I think, is well, no, not the first one. Well, let's just go with Cherokee Art Market. Okay, I know that's in October, and I did talk to them, and they said they're still planning to move forward. So Cherokee Art Market, let's say we wanted to research that event, and we are able to go and attend. So we would put it on our timeline. That would be the 12 months out on our calendar timeline in October. So we would start there and plan to attend the show. And we would go and look around and take notes. See what stands out to you, what doesn't stand out to you. Kind of look at the market and get a feel for what the target of that market is. You know, who are they targeting? What kind of clientele do you see? Do you see a lot of collectors? Do you see just who is it that is attending that show, and who are the artists that are there? What are they offering? You know, and just see how the show's going. You might look for artists at this art market that have a medium comparable to yours. If you did pottery, seek out other potters there at the market. If, for my case, if I do apparel, I would go and look for other apparel artists there and talk to them about how the show is for them. If there are a lot of people there that are interested in purchasing apparel, if there's a lot of traffic there, how the artist feels about the show. Do they feel like it's heavily promoted? Do they feel like there's a good amount of traffic there? So those are things that you want to do when you go to look at an event. And if you have the opportunity while you're there, it's always good to find some of the organizers and talk to them. A lot of times the organizing people will have a booth somewhere where you can go for information, and it's good to talk to them about they might be able to give you numbers on traffic, you know, how many thousands of people come through their event during the time of their event. They might be able to tell you how many booths they have in their market every year. They might be able to tell you what's provided in a booth space. They can also tell you things like what the booth fees are, when the applications become available each year, and that sort of thing. So you can gather really a lot of information to plan ahead for attending an art market. So also, I know when I go to an area, if I'm not actually participating in the event and I'm just going to check it out, I also will kind of look up hotels in the area, and if they're, you know, find out the ones that are nearby to the event. And sometimes I even will go by and look at those and check them out and check out their prices. Sometimes when you book far enough in advance, they do give you a discount for that too. So while you are in the area of the market you're researching, it's always good to, you know, do as much homework as you can, find out as much about the event as possible. So that's what you do 12 months out when you actually go and check out the event itself. So in this case, that would we'd be starting in October 2020 with our calendar timeline. and moving forward from there. So as we discussed on Monday, you can go, let me see if I can find the slide here. You can, 11 months out, you want to start looking for the application online and start organizing your portfolio. And by your portfolio, I'm talking about your resume, your artist bio, your artist statement, and your images that you'll use for submission, along with descriptions of those images. A lot of times, and it took me just so many times of doing it and forgetting to finally get it drilled into my head that when I'm getting ready to submit slides, in my case, I make apparel, and the dimensions, you know, it's not like measuring a sculpture or painting or something. I have to get down and measure, like from the neckline down to the hem, and then I have to find the widest part of the garment, so I have to measure the hem, and I always forget to do this, and I'll be online trying to submit my application, and I'll have to stop and run back to my clothes rack and pull out my tape measure and get those measurements. So I have just learned over time that when I create something new and it's something that I think might be a juried piece, I write down everything that I need to know for it, you know, all the inspiration, all the background, all the materials, and I do measure it at that time. So I have that ready before I need it. So those are the things you can start working on 11 months out from the event. Here's a slide again from Monday. 10 to 6 months out, you definitely want to start looking for that application online. As I mentioned Monday, a lot of events don't have the application available 12 months out, but they do have it like 9 to 10 months out. They'll have it available online. And there is a generous period for returning it. So it's good to look for the application. And as what I do, if I can find it online, I create a folder for each market, and I will download the application and store it in the folder so that way I can look through it and know exactly what materials I need to get ready to apply for this event, whether it's images or descriptions of the images, if I need my CDIB image, all different kinds of things are requested by different markets. So it's good to know in advance what all you need so you can start accumulating it in one place. So between 10 to 6 months out, you're going to send in your application. So if the event is in October, well, that 10 months out would be December, January, somewhere in there, you want to start getting ready to submit your application. And at that point, it's a good idea, really, if you can, to refresh your publicity package if you already have one. And by that, just your images, whether you have a headshot, images of your work, and also you want to begin planning your inventory for that event. After you've been there and researched it, you should have a good idea of a good feel for the target market. And so you want to think about what kind of pieces you would like to sell there and what the price range of those are. Did it look like a market from talking to other artists that they buy more on the low end with a couple of maybe 1 or 2 higher price sales, or is it all collectors? Those are good things to know so you can plan how to distribute your inventory and how much of each you're going to bring. So 6 to 3 months out, which is going to be, I'm trying to count backwards from October, like April, May, June, July, somewhere in there, you should be receiving your acceptance letter. And if you are accepted to an art market, it's good to send a press release. That can be one of those things that you get ready earlier with your publicity package. It's good to have a pre-written press release sometimes, and you can just go back and fill in the information for what market it is or what the dates are, how many artists will be showing there. Those kind of things are always good. And send out those press releases. I send them to my local newspaper. I send them to my tribal newspaper. In the past, I have sent them to the college that I graduated from as alumni. Sometimes they do post that information and share it. So it's always good to put those press releases out there because, like we discussed just briefly on Monday, of course, this isn't a marketing presentation, but it's always good to keep your name, your logo, your artwork in front of people. So be sure and get those press releases out there because any publicity you can get always does help. So at this point, you also want to be analyzing your display needs for your booth. If it's your first time or your 20th time, you want to look over your equipment or look at your equipment list and plan for what you need, what you're going to purchase to take to display your artwork, and make sure that everything is in good working order. Again, I can only use myself as an example. I have dress forms, I have garment racks, I have grid wall, signage, those kind of things, and make sure everything looks good and is not damaged and ready to go. So 6 months out, you can also start budgeting for the event. And let me see if I can find the budget slide here real quick. Because it's always good to start planning and budget and know what you need to know for the event. Well, hang on here, I can't get the budget up. Okay, so here we go. Just kidding. Okay, well, almost had it. All right, so here we go. Here is the art show expense budget. So again, the application fees are usually due at the time of that you apply, way in advance, that 10 months out, and usually you'll know that way back from the beginning, so you can budget that, and the actuals usually most of the time the same thing. In your booth fee, you should have an idea of what that is, whether you know if you're going to apply to share or request a large booth or a small booth or whatever it is. You should have a good idea of what that is. Hotel, like I said earlier, way back in October, maybe you researched hotels and you have an idea of what your hotel is, you can budget that in. You know, if you've got to decide if you're going to travel by air or vehicle, you know, and so you've got to consider gas prices times the miles that you're going to travel to get there and return home versus the cost of airfare. And if you do fly, sometimes you can catch shuttles to and from your event in your hotel, but sometimes you might have to rent a car. So those are all things that have to be factored in. And again, your food, if you're going to take an ice chest with healthy food or you're going to eat in restaurants, not that there's not healthy restaurants too, but either way, you've got a budget for your food. You want to budget for your supplies and equipment. If you are an artist who ships artwork to and from the event, or if you let people purchase something from you at the art market and then you ship it to them, you've got to plan for your shipping supplies and packing materials, those kinds of things. And then there's miscellaneous stuff too, things that we always forget. If you forget, in my case, if I forgot the lint brush, or if I forgot clips to hang signage or something, those are always things that you need to run out and get as well. So that is, those are some of the things you need to do budgeting about 6 months out. You want to get that budget going. And then, let me get, I can't talk and switch slides at the same time today. I don't know what my problem is. Okay. I'm telling you. Okay. So here we go. Oops, we're back. Here we go. Okay. So 1 month before the show, well, sorry, two months out before the show. So that's going to be August, maybe August through September, 2 to 1 month before the show. You want to start sending out mailings. If you have any kind of a little advertisement, you should know your booth space number. So whether you just have an email that you send out to your collectors, or whether you use actual physical postcards, send those out to people you know would be interested in knowing you're going to be at a particular art market. Just let them know, this is coming up, this is where I'm going to be, you can find my booth at this location. Refer them to your website, all kinds of things. Just send those mailings out 1 to 2 months before the event. And then it's also time to finalize any loose ends. You know, anything, if you're holding out to purchase a piece of equipment, or you need to get something printed, you need to finalize your prices and have your price tags made. Now's the time to do all those things. And definitely organize your print material. And by that, I do mean if you have any kind of marketing materials like brochures, business cards, you want to make sure that those things are all ready to go and you have a good quantity of them. It's good to have that inventory price list ready to go. It's not something that you have on display, but it's something that you have handy in case you lose a price tag on something. You do want to have your, if you print price tags or hang tags, in my case, I do for apparel. I have hang tags that are printed. So you want to make sure you have all of that printed and ready to go, up to date. And also labels. This is something else that just has to do with, for apparel design anyway, for my clothing, I do have to put labels. Most art markets require artists to have some kind of a signature or stamp on their artwork. In the case of clothing, they ask you to have a label in it that identifies you as the artist. And so I definitely always want to make sure that I have labels in all of my garments as well. And a funny story about that one time is when I was first starting out and I made something to sell, and I sold it to a gift shop in my local area to sell. And I didn't put a label in it. I didn't have any labels at the time. And so it was probably a year or two later, I actually saw the piece of artwork that I made, and I saw someone wearing it at a powwow. So I approached the person wearing it and I said, "Hey, that's a really nice sash you have there. I think I made that. I'm pretty sure that I did." And the person said, "No, you didn't. My aunt so-and-so did." And I said, "Well, I think I know my own work, and I haven't seen anybody else do this technique right here that I did on this. So I'm pretty sure that it's mine." And he said, "Nope, it's not. My aunt so-and-so did it." And I said, "Trust me, I know my own work." And "Nope, you didn't do it. My aunt so-and-so did." So that taught me a good lesson right there, to be sure and identify all of your artwork, no matter what you have to do it. Put something in there that's permanent, that lasts, that can identify it as your artwork, because I lost credit for something I did right there, and I really had no other way to prove that I did do it. So that was a good lesson to learn early on, because from that time on, I have always put labels in my garments. So just another side note tip there. So we are down to 1 month before the show, and then showtime when you get to the art market. So let's say this is the Cherokee Art Market, and we started 12 months out, and now it's finally a whole 12 months later, and you are at Cherokee Art Market as an artist to sell. You want to get there, and of course you'll receive material, a packet of materials from the organization ahead of time that will tell you about when to submit your juried art. So, so a good time to submit your artwork is, when you get there, make sure you follow the guidelines and the timeline to submit those things and get them turned in. And then it's good to try and set up as much as you can, access the layout of the marketplace. Some are indoors, some are outdoors. And just make sure you know the exits and entrances, or, if it's outdoors, where the restrooms are, where the nearest coffee shop is. Just make sure you're comfortable knowing where everything is in proximity to you and your booth for the event. And then if you can, as much as you possibly can in advance, set up your display. So it just helps the more that you can have done ahead of the event. So the morning of the event, there are always collectors and people that get there early. I know because I have participated in the Cherokee Art Market that we're using in our example here, that they do have what they call a collector's hour that opens up for certain ticket holders, that they get to come in an hour before the event actually starts to shop. So that's an hour earlier than the market is advertised, and you still need to be there and be ready, because it is uncomfortable to be trying to set up and put things together, have safety pins sticking out of your mouth when you're trying to put things up, and try to talk to customers at the same time. So it's always good to set up in advance as much as you can. And then the day of the show, be sure and get there early, again, because sometimes these preview events take place. There are collectors that are always there early. I know at Santa Fe, they're out there in the dark with flashlights for sure, waiting for their favorite artists. So you always want to get there early and make sure that you're organized and ready to go. Make sure your prices are marked and visible on everything, or at least where people can access them. And if you have a chance, take a quick walk through to make mental notes of the art market. So that's just a rundown of the timeline starting 12 months out. And of course, that's kind of like a rolling timeline. So as you're researching Cherokee Art Market this October, maybe, let's see, one of the other art markets, let's see who has a deadline that's,
Leslie?
yes.
I do have one quick question, and it's still within the theme of the art market, is that,
Okay.
what do you see when you're actually at an art market and you're walking around, like you were just saying, or you're there at your booth and you look around, you see everybody else. What do you see that are big no-nos that just people keep doing over and over again that just you would not recommend? And also, what have been some really cool creative ideas that people have done in their booths?
Oh my gosh, there is so much both ways. And I think one of the things I know from the standpoint of the producers of the art market, a big no-no is having your art or your storage or your supplies extend outside of the area of your booth space. If your booth space is 10 by 10 or 8 by 8 or whatever, they don't like you to extend it further out into the aisle or the walkway or the street where clients, customers, and collectors are passing through. You really have to adhere to those borders of your booth space. And along that same line, that's something that is not really appealing, to have your storage and things just kind of sticking out all over the place or in a pile in the corner here or there. And I know sometimes it's hard, you know, if we're limited to this little space, if you're able to have a table in your booth space, if you use a table for display, you can always put some sort of a drape or tablecloth over it and hide all of your storage underneath the table. For example, in my booth, the things that I have that are storage are things like, I'll have 7 or 8 garment bags that I need to stick somewhere. I will have shopping bags, tissue paper, those kind of things. And I need to kind of stash them so my area looks neat. And so what I've come up with is just folding everything into one garment bag and hanging that garment bag on the back end of my clothes rack and then zipping it up. So you don't know what's in it, but everything I have is nice and neat in there, all my shopping bags and things that I can get to pretty easily. But that is one big no-no I know, is to not extend outside your area in the marketplace. Another thing is, maybe if you're playing music or something, don't play it too loud that it is going to be distracting to the people on either side of you, the other artists behind you or on either side of you. That's really all that I can think of as far as big things big don'ts. But some of the creative and fun things I have seen that, gosh, some people, I'm in awe of their displays and their creativity. Definitely, I see people that put carpets in their booth space when it's an outdoor event. They put shelving in there and display on shelves. I've seen people use driftwood to display pieces of artwork. I've seen all kinds of really interesting things. And so it varies a lot by what your art form is and what the size of your pieces are and those sort of things. But there's definitely a lot of creativity going on there. And I think some of those that stood out to me were the ones that were almost decorated or fixed up inside, almost like an interior of a showroom or a living room, somewhere that you could walk in and feel comfortable with the carpets. Sometimes they have chairs, those sort of things where you can come in and look around and it's inviting, it draws you in, very eye-catching. So those are some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm one that's good at thinking of things and giving you an answer 30 minutes later. We don't have that much time, so that's what I can think of off the top of my head. I hope that helps.
No, that was really great. There's some really cool ideas too that I didn't even think about, the carpet. And I mean, also just volunteering for art markets in the past myself. Like, it is a big deal. You have to stay within your feet range, you know, like you got to stay in it. And it's also kind of like a risk to the participants, the visitors, etc., that there is that space. You don't want, and also your artwork, you don't want somebody to trip over it and break something or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it has to be fair to everyone. But no, that's wonderful that you're able to share that. It looks like on Facebook Live there are no questions. Zoom there are no questions. So if you just wanted to wrap up, Leslie, feel free to do so.
Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you, just going down and breaking it down in terms of months over the course of 12 months, how we would apply this timeline to our calendar. And then that helps us to be organized and create an artist calendar. Of course, if you are applying to more art markets or researching more art markets than just one per year, you would add those in your timeline as you go along. Of course, we started with Cherokees in October, but if you wanted to research the Heard Museum art market in August, then as you're moving along through your calendar, you definitely want to start putting down information to attend the Heard in March and look at that. And then maybe 2 months down from that, from March, April, May, you would want to start put in your calendar to start looking online for the Heard art market application. And you just kind of fill in your timeline from there, knowing the events. But I think that those links we shared on Monday, if those are still available to access on Facebook, those are helpful, a good place to start for researching what month, what time of year art markets, these particular art markets you're interested in take place, and starting to just put them down on an 18 to 12 to 10 month timeline and just fill in the details as you go along from month to month. So I want to thank all of you that showed up today to join me. I hope some of this information has helped you. And thank you all, if you were here earlier, for your patience again while we got our technical difficulties worked out. And Hillary, thank you again so much to you and First Peoples Fund for allowing me to share this information. I've had a great time.
Well, thank you so much, Leslie. It's always any excuse for me to hang out with you, any capacity, I will take it. So work-wise, that's perfect. So thank you so much just for being here and sharing your background and expertise with us. I did share the links from Monday's webinar in this week's webinar, right? Well, today's webinar, excuse me. And I also shared that the registration link for Tanea Winder's Performing Arts webinar,
Yes.
which is next week. That's our next one coming up next Monday and Wednesday. The title of her focus is going to be Cultivating Your Online Presence During a Pandemic. And again, it's a performing arts focus, but any medium art can really benefit from learning from somebody like Tanea for sure. But again, thank you, Leslie, for your time. As always, have a wonderful week. And thank you, everybody on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We love your support and hope to see you back next week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you
Stay
all.
safe, stay healthy. Thank you.